Now that Han Zio had escaped from the Germinal Organization, he no longer had access to the resources that he would need to become stronger. Joining the 6 nations would solve this problem. Han Zio already had a plan in mind. In Galaxy, there was known to be a secret encounter hidden in the western capital. Han Zio arrived at the gates of a workshop concealed inside an inconspicuous alley. The workshop was nameless, but it had a spanner for a logo. The secret encounter will be mine in this life. There was a chess table set up at the entrance of the workshop. 2 elderly men were currently engaged in a game. Their appearances were in stark contrast to one another. The shorter elderly man was bearded and had long, unkempt hair, while the taller old man was prim and proper. Both of them were staring at the chessboard intently. Han Zio noticed that the tall old man had a missing arm. Both of them paid little heed to Han Zio as he stepped into the workshop. Han Zio took a look at the chessboard. They seemed to be playing an intense game of Go. Suddenly, Han Zio realized that it was not Go at all. It was 5 in a row. What the hell are you guys looking so serious for? A woman appeared from within the workshop. Do you need something repaired? She had a fair complexion, rosy cheeks, and was around 1.65 meters tall. Her hair was clipped behind with a black pin, and she was wearing a black vest on top of denim shorts. Although Han Zio wouldn't go so far as to call her a stunning beauty, she did have an extremely pleasant-looking face. She was very much the proverbial girl next door who had gentle eyes and a warm smile. She seemed to be in her mid-20s, Han Zio's personal preference. Women at 20 can be compared to peaches, good to look at but not yet ripe. Women at 30, on the other hand, are like ripe grapes. Of course, these things are always a matter of taste. As for women at 40, what about 50? 50-year-old women cannot be described as fruits anymore. They are potatoes. May I know if this place needs an apprentice? Han Zio asked. For some reason, the woman was overjoyed to hear his words. She hastily grabbed Han Zio's elbow and pulled him in, as though afraid that he would change his mind. Come in, quickly. You might catch a cold. Han Zio looked up at the blazing sun and wondered, is catching a cold the dialect here for heat stroke? The workshop was largely colored in black and white, and there was a second floor. The first floor was the working area, and it was a fairly spacious area. There were a number of vehicle platforms and workbenches equipped with various tools and machinery. Han Zio could tell from the blemishes on the workbenches that they were relatively old. My name is Liu Kaiyan. I'm the boss here. You can call me Sister Kaiyan, introduced the woman. Sister Kaiyan, Han Zio greeted. He then inquired, I wish to take up apprenticeship here. Are there any requirements? Tell me your situation, replied Liu Kaiyan. Her first impression of Han Zio was quite favorable. She particularly liked the dead look in his eyes. They made Han Zio look like he was a bum. He will probably be content with a low wage, she thought to herself. I still need to test you. I do need a helper, but you will have to meet my criteria first. Liu Kaiyan went to fetch a faulty household appliance back to test Han Zio. Before Han Zio could begin, the shorter old man at the chessboard suddenly spoke. Kid, why did you come here? Liu Kaiyan frowned in puzzlement. Wasn't it just to find work? Han Zio looked at the old man and replied, I'm just looking for a job. For some reason, his reply upset the old man, and he flipped the chessboard. I am the owner of this shop. Pass my test, and I will allow you to stay. Oi, old man Liu, you're being a sore loser again, erupted the tall old man. I have something important to do, stated old man Liu matter-of-factly. Shameless, replied the tall old man exasperatedly. Star Dragon's Strategic Defense Division, also known as Division 13. Han Zio's mind was racing. Old man Liu was none other than the key character in the secret questline, and Han Zio had come here to meet him. However, what Han Zio had not expected was running into the tall old man here. This old man was an important figure in Star Dragon, and Han Zio knew that there was no point in trying to hide his identity from him. Han Zio's original plan had been to gain Division 13's trust before revealing himself. He intended to do so by feeding them with anonymous intel on the Germinal Organization. However, that was no longer possible. To have to reveal himself to Division 13 so soon had certainly not been a part of Han Zio's calculations. But Han Zio was not rigid in his thinking. What test? He asked Old Man Liu in response. Old Man Liu looked around as he tried to come up with something. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Pointing towards the tall old man's missing arm, he said, make him a prosthetic limb. If it satisfies him, you pass. Why drag me into this? The tall old man was confused, but he quickly understood Old Man Liu's intentions from his subtle winks. Grandpa, you're too much. What if you scare him away? Every day, all you do is drink, play chess, and go for strolls. When was the last time you actually bothered to help out with the business? Can't I even get a helper? Lu Kaiyan was disgruntled, but her words fell on deaf ears. Old Man Lu ignored her as he looked at Han Zio for a reply. For some reason though, Han Zio seemed amused. Are you sure you want me to make a prosthetic arm that satisfies him? He asked to clarify. If you're scared, then leave. I accept. Han Zio happily agreed to the task. He still had the blueprints that sat gathering dust in his inventory. Not only was Old Man Lu's request too simple for Han Zio, it even presented him with the opportunity to curry favor with the tall old man. For some reason, everything seemed to be going well for Han Zio, as though someone was looking out for him. You only have 3 hours. I don't have the time to wait an entire day, Old Man Lu snorted. Grandpa, Lu Kaiyan exclaimed in protest. Creating a bionic limb was not a straightforward task. Measurements first had to be taken, followed by designing, and lastly crafting. Designing alone would take hours, and while using a workbench would speed up much of the crafting process, that would still take another 2 hours. It was completely unfair. As soon as Han Zio finished taking measurements, Lu Kaiyan offered him her help. Tell me your concept. We can draw up the plans together to save time. No need, I already have the perfect design, declined Han Zio unexpectedly. Only 2 minutes. Lu Kaiyan's eyes were wide with disbelief. Your bragging might even reach the moon. Old Man Lu burst out in laughter. To come up with a complete blueprint in just 2 minutes was an impossible task even for him. What more a kid like Han Zio? Han Zio passed a list of the materials and tools he needed to Lu Kaiyan, who swiftly went to fetch everything. However, she did not hold much hope for Han Zio as the test was simply absurd and unfair. Han Zio started to use the pressing machine to shape metals into shapes and parts. He planned to use an aluminum alloy as the core material of the arm, as aluminum alloys were light, yet sturdy, but also easy to shape. Having parts like screws, rivets, and chains readily provided saved him a lot of time. Gave Han Zio keen intuition for the composition of machines. For a second, it seemed to him like the parts themselves came to life, as though they were excited at the prospect of being assembled into a machine. As Han Zio began to weld and assemble the parts he created, the prosthetic arm began to take shape. The others were surprised by the fact that Han Zio did not create any excess parts. He had been thoroughly efficient from the start, which proved that he had actually planned everything out. My God, he won't actually succeed, will he? Muttered Old Man Lu, causing Lu Kaiyan to glare at him. What a sly grandpa. Seeing them look so amazed almost caused Han Zio to burst out in laughter. How could he possibly fail when he already had the blueprint in his memory? You have created, giving you 2000 exp. Special item. A very realistic prosthetic created using the principles of machine dynamics and suspension. Adjustable to suit the user's needs, it is soft, yet extremely durable. Everyone was shocked. He really made it. As Lu Kaiyan covered her mouth in disbelief, a single thought came to her mind. I've struck gold. This prosthetic will look realistic if you cover it with. Save the bullshit. Let's test it now, interrupted Old Man Lu as he swallowed his saliva. Although Han Zio had truly exceeded his expectations, his mind was still unchanged. The tall old man rolled his eyes at Old Man Lu and picked the prosthetic up to examine it. He instantly fell in love with it. It fit onto his stump extremely comfortably, unlike other prosthetics that had non-adjustable, rigid attachments. The reason that he did not like to wear a prosthetic arm was that they always got in the way of his movement. However, Han Zio's creation did not give him this problem. It felt so realistic that when he moved it, it felt like he had grown back an arm. The elastic suspension enabled him to effortlessly make simple movements. Perfection. This was the only word that could describe how he felt about it. What do you think? Satisfactory? Asked Old Man Lu coolly as he sipped on his beer. The tall old man found himself in a tight spot. Should he help his friend? Or should he say his true feelings? Which was more important? This thing is excellent. I'm satisfied. Old Man Lu spat out his beer and glared at the tall old man as he coughed continuously. Weren't we allies? We had a plan. Since you like it, you can have it. Han Zio was not surprised at all. The tall old man nodded his head and replied, I will remember this favor. Old Man Lu was flabbergasted. The arm was made with my materials. Did you ask for my permission? Then, can I stay? Han Zio turned to Old Man Lu and asked, his lips curling. Old Man Lu's shock immediately turned into embarrassment. As he turned around to head upstairs, he reluctantly replied, whatever, if you want to stay, then stay. Let's see how long you'll last. Lu Kaiyan shook her fists in celebration. The tall old man smiled at Han Zio before leaving the workshop. After walking out of the alley, he entered a black sedan car that had been waiting for him. The chauffeur respectfully passed a mobile phone to him. As the tall old man picked up the phone, his entire demeanor completely changed. He now looked extremely stern, a totally different person from the genial old man from before. The Germinal Organization fugitive has snuck into the Western capital. These are the coordinates. He spoke in a deep voice. Have the intelligence department monitor him for now. I have come into contact with the target and will slowly find out his intentions. Unless necessary, do not act. Deserters of the Germinal Organization were highly valued by the Six Nations as they sometimes held valuable information. Unfortunately, most of the deserters were usually small fry. Han Zhao, on the other hand, was the first person to have a bounty issued for on him. It followed that it was highly likely that he possessed crucial information. In the workshop, Han Zhao turned his eyes back from where the tall old man had left. His performance should have let the tall old man know that he was not hostile and laid the groundwork for a better relationship. There were 3 things for Han Zhao to gain from coming to the workshop. The first was that old man Lu kept a very comprehensive collection of mechanic-related basic knowledge. The second was that this workshop was a good place to hide from the Germinal Organization. While the Germinal Organization had spies across the 6 nations, they did not know every single nook and cranny. This workshop was one of the few places that they were not aware of. And even if they found it, there was Old Man Lu. Old Man Lu was far stronger than the current Gila. Although he appeared like some carefree good-for-nothing, he was actually one of the few Class D superhumans on the planet. The third reason that Han Zhao had come to the workshop was the most important one, for the secret storyline. Its rewards were some blueprints of early-level godly equipment. I'll explain your apprenticeship. Your meals and accommodation will be provided for. There is an unused room on the 2nd floor. Your job scope will consist of helping out with maintenance work, as well as orders. I'll pay you $1,000 a month, is that fine? Lu Qian looked at Han Zhao nervously. She knew that he was skilled, but she truly did not have the money to offer him a higher salary. I accept, said Han Zhao without hesitation, at which she rejoiced. Since there were neither quests to do nor monsters to hunt, the only way to get stronger now was through crafting. Han Zhao would need money to make machines, so he planned to find some way to make extra income. Division 13 served not only as Star Dragon's ears and eyes, but also as a hidden knife. Reporting, 0 has been located. A gentle-looking bespectacled female secretary hastily knocked open the office door of the department's director. A stern-faced man was seated behind the desk. Drool could be seen on the corner of his mouth. Speak, he said in a low voice. Director, were you secretly taking a nap again? The bespectacled secretary squinted at him. Cut the crap. The intelligence director glared back. Talk. 0 is currently hiding in a machinery maintenance shop in District 7. The higher-ups want to adopt a friendly approach. You just turned back to wipe your drool, right? I really regret promoting you. The secretary pushed her glasses up and ignored him. How exactly should we proceed? Since 0 came to the Western capital alone, he must want to cooperate. Activate protection protocol immediately. We must not let Germinal's agents learn of his presence here. Have the hackers intercept any news of his trail and prevent leaks. Also, send an undercover agent to check him out. He might just be a spy they sent. A traitor worth a $1 million bounty. There are 2 possibilities. Either he possesses important information, or he possesses great power. For now, we are unable to ascertain how dangerous he might be, so proceed with utmost caution. I don't want a repeat of what happened with Black Spider. 2 streets bombed, yet we failed to apprehend him. I was scolded for 2 whole hours by the minister as a result of that. As the workshop wasn't that busy, Han Zhao had quite a lot of free time to look for the extra income he needed. Hero Junkyard, the biggest disposal ground in District 7. Here, endless piles of trash were sorted out every day. This place fell under the territory of an underworld boss known as Big Raccoon. Where there is light, there will be shadows, such as society. And this holds all the more true in times of chaos. Although the Western capital was the main capital of Star Dragon, it was certainly not a holy sanctuary for the law-abiding. I heard that you want to see me. What's your name? He casually asked. Technician Han, answered Han Zhao. The raccoon sneered. You should know what will happen to you if you're just wasting my time. Suddenly, Han Zhao reached out to steal the bald thug's gun. The bald thug felt a tug at his waist and turned around. But it was too late. The grunts behind Raccoon hastily drew their guns. What's the meaning of this? He asked nervously. Unexpectedly, Han Zhao began to disassemble the gun. But it wasn't a simple disassembly. The gun unraveled almost instantaneously, as if Han Zhao were performing some kind of magic. The disassembled parts fell and scattered onto the floor. Firearms are a sure profit. I can help you manufacture them in exchange for a little bit of compensation. This kid can make guns. Firearms were hot in demand in the black market. Using a gun and making a gun were two completely separate concepts. Mechanics who knew how to create guns were rare and highly esteemed. Even though Raccoon was the leader of a gang, they were just small-time hoodlums. To be able to find a mechanic willing to make guns for them was inconceivable. Yet, here Han Zhao was. This is my chance, thought Raccoon. What arrangements do you have in mind? I will make a list of materials and parts for you to gather. Manufacturing and assembly will all be done by me. I'll come here to work for 2 hours every morning. I want $1,500 per gun, and freedom to take anything I want from this junkyard. Han Zhao had already thoroughly analyzed the Germinal Organization's guns. He was now able to easily make simple guns. Since I'm providing the materials, $1,000, negotiated Raccoon. Han Zhao instantly turned around and began to walk away. This caused Raccoon to become flustered. He had only been trying to test out Han Zhao and did not expect such a big reaction. Wait, we'll follow your charges, he hastily said. One handgun was worth $3,000 to $4,000 on the black market. Han Zhao's asking fee was still quite reasonable. Get a workbench ready along with the materials. It will come from tomorrow onwards. I'll go check the junkyard out now. A skilled craftsman always retained the power to dictate his terms. Han Zhao knew full well his own value. Furthermore, his true strength and identity was a mystery to them. This gave him the complete upper hand. Han Zhao salvaged quite a number of parts from the junkyard before leaving. As he left, he noticed that someone was following him. Clearly, Raccoon was trying to find out more information about him. However, for Han Zhao, shaking him off the thug was an easy task. Division 13 will learn of my mechanic skills, thought Han Zhao to himself. The fact that he was working with Raccoon would definitely be found out by them. In any case, it was a way to demonstrate his abilities to them. Plus, he also needed the opportunity to craft machinery for experience. The reason he had chosen Raccoon was due to the junkyard's proximity. When he returned to the workshop, Lu Kaiyan questioned his whereabouts. I went to the junkyard, said Han Zhao, pointing to the big bag of spare parts in his hand. The junkyard? That place is not safe. Don't go there in the future. Lu Kaiyan wasn't really concerned with what Han Zhao did in his free time as long as he did his job right. In fact, she had a soft spot for people who did not demand high pay. Han Zhao put the spare parts aside and summoned the interface. He still had a lot of unused talent points, and he decided he would dump all of them into the 2 unlocked arms talents. This workshop was a treasure trove of mechanic knowledge. It was one of the best places to level up as a mechanic. Han Zhao went to look for Old Man Lu to borrow some of his books. He found him cooped up in his room as he expected. I wish to borrow some mechanic knowledge books. Go away, you. There's not a single book for you here. Don't be so petty. Think of it as investing into a promising young man and nurturing him. It seems like you are more thick-skinned than me. However, I simply don't want to lend you my books. What can you do about it? What, indeed, could Han Zhao do about it? The following day, Lu Kaiyan entered Old Man Lu's room with a spare key and stole some books for Han Zhao. Old Man Lu was infuriated. Why do I have such a disloyal granddaughter? Just you wait. I will make you leave this workshop. Shop owner, is this a repair shop? It was a middle-aged man. Han Zhao turned to look at the guest, and he noticed the man was looking at him. The man immediately averted his gaze. Suspicious, thought Han Zhao. When he further noticed his above-average sense of balance and solid footing, he realized that the man was most likely an agent from Division 13 who had been sent to test him. Lu Kaiyan walked forward to receive him with a polite smile. Welcome. What is it that you need repaired? My car broke down, replied the middle-aged man as he watched Han Zhao. It's outside. All right, no problem. Just as Lu Kaiyan was about to pick up her toolkit, the middle-aged man suddenly pointed at Han Zhao and said, I want this little brother to repair my car. Lu Kaiyan was stunned. Do I not look capable enough? You're being sexist. I'll do it, agreed Han Zhao as he took the toolkit from his dejected boss. The pair came out of the alley into the main street, where an old sedan car was stopped by the roadside. This is the car. Han Zhao lifted the bonnet, inspected the interior, and swiftly began to perform repairs. As Han Zhao worked on the car, the middle-aged man tried to strike a conversation. Kid, you're quite young, aren't you? I'm 30. 30? Do you think I'm blind or what? The middle-aged man nearly choked. How should I address you? He asked. You should show some sincerity when asking for a person's name, replied Han Zhao without looking at him. I'm Feng Jun, answered the middle-aged man awkwardly. That's a nice name, complimented Han Zhao, except that he didn't sound the least bit sincere, leaving the middle-aged speechless. But you misunderstand, I just want a cigarette, he added. Feng Jun uncomfortably took out his cigarette pack and passed one to Han Zio. You can call me Han Zio, introduced Han Zio as he took a puff and returned to the task at hand. Feng Jun continued to probe. Han Zio, you're not a local, are you? Where are? It's done, Han Zio suddenly interrupted, cutting his words off. What the hell? I've only just started to probe you. Can you not be so quick? Han Zio expressionlessly stretched out a hand, saying, a pipe was broken. I'll charge you $60. Pay up. Of course I know the pipe is broken, damn it. I broke it on purpose. Feng Jun smiled as he took out his wallet and slowly fiddled around in an attempt to buy more time. You have pretty good skills. Where did you acquire them? Natural talent. Oh, that's amazing. Where are you from? From the countryside. Han Zio raised an eyebrow. Are you trying to get a discount out of me? At his wit's end, Feng Jun coughed dryly before finally pulling out the money to pay up. Will the department reimburse me for this? He wondered. Han Zio sneered. I thought it would take you another hour to find your money. How big is your wallet? As he whistled whimsically, he proceeded to pack up and headed back to the workshop. When he left, Feng Jun cheerlessly made a phone call. Initial observation concluded. The target is a mechanic and his threat level is still an uncertainty. Duration of contact was 4 minutes and 38 seconds. The target named himself as Han Zio. I suggest proceeding with more testing, and to avoid direct confrontation. My analysis of his character. Yes, extremely annoying. The next couple of days went by peacefully. Han Zio's daily routine now included going to the junkyard every morning to produce guns. He was paid in cash daily after each session, and was able to salvage a number of spare parts for creating the Rover. A few days later, Han Zio had finished crafting all of the Rover's parts, and he was now assembling the robot in his room. 1.2 meters tall and armor-plated to protect its interior. Its top half was the shape of a person, except that it didn't have a neck. It ran on a basic integrated circuit. It had 2-section mechanical arms that could bend and rotate like a person's, and its fingers were remodeled by Han Zio into guns. Its torso could also rotate 90 degrees, and was inlaid with magazine compartments. Instead of legs, it moved on tank tracks. The system prompted Han Zio to name his creation. Adopting his past naming style, he named it Rover 1. Liu Kaiyan was engaged in a conversation with a customer who kept on glancing at Han Zio when he appeared. He was clearly yet another agent from Division 13. Division 13 had, over the past few days, sent many undercover agents to spy on Han Zio, but since Han Zio was a tough nut to crack, they were now attacking from a different angle. Why are there so many people asking about you? Asked a puzzled Liu Kaiyan when the agent left. Well, I'm popular, but they're all guys. Han Zio froze up. It's not what you think. Don't worry, I won't judge you, replied Liu Kaiyan as she started giggling. Why are you giggling like that? Suddenly, Han Zio's turned serious. He had received a system alert. You have triggered the Class E mission. Accept, reject. Han Zio was bewildered. What could have triggered such a mission? Accept. Mission synopsis. The bounty on your head is being eyed. Your enemies are near and they are hiding in the shadows. Meanwhile, a certain group of people has been watching you to assess your potential. What will you do? Requirement: avoid death. Reward: 10,000 experience. Bonus reward: 1x skill level up card. Han Zio rolled his eyes at the dramatic synopsis. The group of people referred to in the synopsis most definitely referred to Division 13. Han Zio put the clues together and conjectured that Division 13 could have leaked intel on him in an elaborate setup to test his combat strength. However, if that were the case, the people after him must not be too strong. Since the enemy could appear at any moment, I'd better not stay in the workshop. Han Zio didn't want to rely on Old Man Liu. After contemplating for a moment, he thought of the perfect location for battle. Hero Junkyard. Hero Junkyard was Raccoon's territory. Han Zio planned to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He put down his tools and called out to Liu Kaiyan with a request. I wish to take the day off. Okay, replied Liu Kaiyan, blinking. Is something wrong? No, why? Han Zio paused. Han Zio always looked lethargic and bored, and Liu Kaiyan, being the observant woman that she was, had noticed the sudden change in air about him. If she had to describe the kind of feeling Han Zio was giving her now, for some reason, dangerous was the word that came to mind. If you're facing any difficulties, I'll definitely help you, she said in a serious tone. Not knowing what to say, Han Zio stared at her, which caused her to shift about uncomfortably. She turned away from Han Zio and twirled her hair, saying, Don't you know it's rude to stare? Hanzio turned away too and replied, "I won't be back for dinner." Hanzio returned to his room to get ready. After a short while, he headed out with a backpack and a trolley. "Boss, is that kid the target?" A man wearing shades was tailing Hanzio. Every time Hanzio turned back, he would instantly vanish by making use of his surroundings, be it a public phone booth or a magazine stand. He was clearly a professional. There was a total of 5 masked men in the van. They were none other than Hanzio's assailants. They were the Bee Sting Squad, a group of mercenaries who specialized in hunting bounties. They were decently well known in underground networks, having successfully completed numerous missions. They had by chance stumbled upon Hanzio's trail. For them, this mission was more important than any that they had ever taken on before. Bounty aside, they were hoping to gain favor with the Germinal Organization and earn their backing. Hanzio arrived at the junkyard, to Raccoon's surprise. "Why is he here?" "I've come to find some spare parts," Hanzio casually lied. It was a reasonably convincing excuse. Raccoon then invited Hanzio for lunch, assuming he would decline, but unexpectedly, Hanzio agreed, causing him to be visibly caught off guard. A banquet table was set up by Raccoon's men. Hanzio and Raccoon sat on opposite sides, facing each other as they conversed. "I must say, you have indeed been very cautious all this time." "So what?" Raccoon's face darkened. "Do you understand the situation you're in? Hand over everything you know about making guns." "Why so cold?" "Cold? We were nothing more than business partners. Would you believe me if I said that I can slaughter all of you if I wanted to?" Hanzio smiled tauntingly. Raccoon snapped his fingers as he sneered. In an instant, the 4 thugs around him were pointing their guns at Hanzio. Other than Raccoon and the 4 thugs across the table, there were 2 more men standing guard outside the room, and there was little space for Hanzio to maneuver in the compact room. "Even if I tell you, you will still silence me." Raccoon laughed coldly. It was exactly as Hanzio said. "I do hope that you cooperate though. At least it will save you some suffering. And if I don't, I have some men who are good at things like torture. You will talk eventually." Suddenly, as the last rays of sunlight dissipated, darkness descended. Hanzio had been waiting for this. Vroom. The mechanical arm roared to life, shredding the backpack apart. Hanzio flipped the dining table, sending pots and plates smashing into Raccoon and the 4 thugs. Bullets clinked and clanked onto the mechanical arm, causing its durability to plummet. Hanzio smashed the mechanical arm into one of the thugs' chest. One loud thud, and he exploded on the spot. Gathering all his strength, Hanzio ripped out the door from its bolts and threw it at them before running out. "Chase!" barked Raccoon. Dozens of thugs throughout the entire junkyard were alerted by the gunshots, and they were rushing over to help. Hero Junkyard was Raccoon's main base, and Hanzio had to tread carefully to avoid being surrounded. He looted a gun from one of the thugs he encountered, which made things easier for him. With his fast reflexes, as well as to help auto-correct his shots, Hanzio was able to always have the edge against the thugs in the battle of guns. If he encountered a group of them, he would tumble and duck and fire lethal shots as he evaded. The only limitation that he faced was ammo, so he would loot their magazines after each wave. The trail that Hanzio left behind was bloody and littered with corpses, and Raccoon could hardly believe what he was seeing. Hanzio had effortlessly taken out over 20 of his men single-handedly. A submachine gun was being fired from the side of the battlefield. The thugs began dropping in numbers as their screams filled the air. The Sting Squad was entering the fray. Under the guise of nightfall, they instantly overwhelmed Raccoon's inexperienced thugs. Where did these mercenaries come from? Raccoon was scared shitless. "Are they after me?" However, the mercenaries suddenly changed direction and advanced towards Hanzio instead, ignoring him. "These mercenaries are after him." Raccoon stared at the unfolding events in disbelief. As a villain himself, he understood the simple fact that the stronger a person was, the stronger his enemies. The fact that these mercenaries were willing to risk exposing themselves in the capital to go after Hanzio meant that Hanzio must not have been an ordinary person. He thought back to Hanzio's words. "Why don't you try checking the underworld network to see the latest bounties?" He wasn't just talking big. Who exactly is he? That's the sound of submachine guns. His mission target had appeared. Hanzio was able to sniff out the Bee Sting Squad's location from their muzzle flashes. The enemy's firepower was overwhelming. It would be unwise to meet them head-on. "Lucky I came prepared with my trusty Rover." Hanzio sighed in relief. He whipped out the touchscreen remote control that he had created for Rover 1. When activated, the rover's visual feed would appear on the screen. "Connection successful. Activate." In the resting area, amidst debris and dust, the cloth cover on the push trolley suddenly began to vibrate, and 2 red lights appeared from beneath it. The rover's eyes. The rover's engine started to whirl, and its wheels began to rotate as Han Zio piloted it out of the resting area. At this point of time, the bee sting squad had come extremely close to Han Zio. Rover 1's second defenses were not strong enough to take on the collective fire of 6 submachine guns, so it would be too risky to send him in head-on. The sole edge that Han Zio had over them was the element of surprise, as they would never imagine him to have a robot as a reinforcement. Hell rained upon them from Rover 1's second fingers. The entire squad was wiped out on the spot. Your machine, Rover 1 has killed a mercenary. You have gained 800 exp. Kai Lai had managed to take cover in time, but he did not escape unscathed. A few bullets had grazed past his face, leaving him all bloody. He had been so close to perishing with his squad mates. What the hell was that monster? The long-haired man had also survived, but his condition was far worse. Rover 1's second fin armor was slowly dented by the barrage. Seeing that his attacks were effective, Kai Lai and his other remaining teammate began to join the counterattack. Has lost 14 points of armor. Rover 1 has lost 17 points of armor. As Rover 1's armor was made with inferior materials, it was not tanky at all, and its armor integrity plummeted under the trio's assault. In just a few seconds of barrage, the poor Rover was reduced to a useless hunk of metal. It couldn't be helped. As Han Zio had to work with limited funds, all he had equipped the Rover with were the finger guns. Damn it, where is Division 13? Suddenly, as if in answer to his prayers, the sound of a marching troop began to fill up the night. Disarm yourselves, someone roared out. Quickly retreat, ordered Kai Lai immediately. The long-haired man emptied a final magazine onto the Rover furiously before he relented. Okay, let's go. However, right as they were about to flee, the Rover suddenly started. Okay, let's go. However, right as they were about to flee, the Rover suddenly started to charge towards them as it began to glow. Self-destruction. The deafening explosion set the night ablaze, engulfing the trio. About 50 meters away, Lai Hui and his agents were shocked by the massive explosion. Damn it, cursed Feng Jun, this was supposed to be a covert operation. He could already imagine tomorrow's headlines. From the moment that the battle between Han Zio and Raccoon had begun, the situation had already gone out of control. The gunshots alone had already caught the attention of many civilians. However, as they were ordered to act only after the bee sting squad appeared, they could only continue waiting in anguish, and it was now too late. When Lai Hui and his team arrived, they were greeted by a blood-curdling scene. Kai Lai's corpse lay limp on the ground beside a blood-soaked, expressionless Han Zio, whose mechanical arm was covered in pieces of flesh. Half of his face was illuminated by the fire while the other half was grimly enshrouded in darkness. As experienced as these agents were, they were unable to remain calm. You have completed the E-Class quest, gaining 10,000 experience. You have completed the bonus condition, kill all 6 assailants. You have gained a skill level up card. Don't move, shouted Lai Hui after taking a moment to regain his senses from the initial shock. He raised his gun and pointed it at Han Zio. 2 agents slung a black bag over his head to block his vision before leading him away, presumably to bring him to Division 13. About time, thought Han Zio to himself. Raccoon's face darkened as he looked at the aftermath of the battle. Bring me a laptop, he barked. As soon as he logged into the underground network and clicked on bounties, he was greeted by Han Zio's face. 1 million bounty. He's wanted by the Germinal Organization. Raccoon's face instantly paled and he slammed the laptop onto the ground in frustration. Damn it, he really did have a bounty on him. And it was issued by the king of the underworld, no less, the Germinal Organization. When the bag over Han Zio's head was finally removed, he found himself in a bright room. It took a few seconds for his eyes to adjust to the light. He was seated on a cold metal chair in front of a table. It was a typical interrogation room with a one-way mirror to Han Zio's side. 2 people sat across the table, Lai Hui and Feng Jun. Allow me to introduce myself. I am an intelligence officer from the Strategic Defense Division of Star Dragon, spoke Feng Jun. This is not the first time we have met. Do you remember me? I remember, replied Han Zio nonchalantly. The man with the very big wallet. Feng Jun was speechless. Can you not bring that up? Division 13, Lai Hui, introduced Lai Hui. Explain why the Germinal Organization has $1 million bounty on you and tell us everything you know. Why should I tell you? Asked a bemused Han Zio. Lai Hui laughed coldly in response. What do you think this place is? If we want you to talk, you have to talk. Threats? Do you think such things will work on me? Come on, you're making fools out of yourselves. If you want us to cooperate, sure. Show me your sincerity. Get someone qualified enough to speak to me. You two aren't. Suddenly, a deep voice was transmitted through the speaker in the interrogation room. As you wish, I will talk with you. Who are you? Asked Han Zio as he turned to the obvious one-way mirror. Division 13, Intelligence Director. Do I qualify to speak to you? I guess you will do, Han Zio nonchalantly replied. Both Lai Hui and Feng Jun's eyes twitched. What a shameless person. The intelligence director let it slide and started to ask, you just said that you are from the Germinal Organization. I was. Han Zio corrected him mid-speech. So, you have deserted. Yes. What was your position? A logistics research personnel. What did you research? Machinery and weapons. You are lying, cut the intelligence director. How can that explain your $1 million bounty? Han Zio smiled. He had expected this very question. Rather than call me a liar, haven't you guys already assumed that I possess some kind of valuable intel? Isn't that why you've been investigating me from a distance? I am not your enemy. The Germinal Organization is, and they are my enemy too. Why should we even bother to cooperate with you? Asked the intelligence director in reply. Han Zio paused to smile calmly for a moment before suddenly saying, Message log, Galaxy Calendar Year 687, 14th of June. Signal location, Planet Aquamarine. Destination, Planet Blackstar's 8th base. The contents of this message are top secret. The intelligence director remained silent for a full 10 minutes. Lai Hui and Feng Jun gave a start when they realized that although what Han Zio had spoken of made no sense to them, it was clearly valuable intel to the director, who in turn had to go relay the information to the top brass for further instruction. After the long wait, the intelligence director spoke through the speaker again. This time, though, he sounded extremely serious. Are you sure? He asked directly. How would I know of Blackstar otherwise? Fine. The intelligence director was wearing a grave expression. If the intel that Han Zio had given him was actually true, it was extremely crucial to not only Stardragon, but the entire planet. Shattered Belt, Colton Group, the Garden, 9th System, Planet Aquamarine. This was basically Aquamarine's place in the vast universe. Its precise coordinates would take a combination of words and numbers derived using complex math to describe. The interstellar power that had come into contact with Aquamarine was an advanced civilization of the Garden, the Kedolas. The Blackstar that Han Zio referred to was originally a part of the Kedolas, but they broke away in an attempt to seize power and were now bitter enemies. The world of Galaxy was massive, and many powers and civilizations were constantly at odds with one another. A civilization's degree of advancement largely depended on its space travel capabilities, as the Kedolas could freely travel between systems without relying on wormholes or stargates created by even advanced civilizations. They were considered a galactic civilization, a few levels higher than Planet Aquamarine. If the Germinal Organization had actually come into contact with Blackstar and gained their support, things would be extremely grim for the Six Nations. An evil power like them paid no heed to the exploration rules laid down by the Three Powers, the Universal Treaty. The fact that Aquamarine had been contacted by an interstellar power was top-secret information withheld by the Six Nations. Hence, the intelligence director believed Han Zio to be speaking the truth, and this was what made him extremely nervous. However, the truth was that the Germinal Organization had made no such contact with Blackstar. Han Zio simply made it up because it was impossible to verify anyway. Give me a map of Stardragon and a pen, asked Han Zio suddenly. Feng Jun went to fetch the items and put them on the table. Han Zio picked up the pen and circled 3 locations on the map, saying briefly, these are 3 of the Germinal Organization's secret bases in Stardragon. Treat it as my proof of sincerity. You only know 3. Han Zio rolled his eyes inwardly. Of course not, but you can go check these ones out first. We can talk more after. What are your conditions? Asked the intelligence director at long last. Feng Jun and Lai Hui closely watched Han Zio in anticipation. I just want us to work together against Germinal, replied Han Zio with a mysterious smile. That's all, thought the director to himself. I will relay our conversation to the higher-ups. Sorry, but you'll have to continue staying here for the time being. Click, the mic was turned off. Don't take too long. I only have a day off. The director, vice director, 13 section heads, and some other top brass of Division 13 quickly assembled in the conference room to discuss how to proceed with Han Zio. I suggest we detain him and extract the intel from him by force. Division 13 doesn't need to negotiate with anyone. You are being ridiculous. Such measures are uncalled for. Han Zio has already demonstrated his sincerity to us. What we should be doing is accepting it and working together against the common enemy. That is what a coward would do. You are the definition of brainless. Under the leadership of their respective spokesmen, the other members from the 2 factions began to engage in an exchange of insults. Since you want to both cooperate with him and control him, isn't there a perfect solution? Let's recruit him to the department. The bickering crowd instantly broke up, silence ensued. After the conference, the intelligence minister and the logistics minister proceeded to the logistics department together to examine the lightweight mechanical arm. They were interested to see Han Zhao's craftsmanship to gain insight on him. The personnel they had tasked with conducting the examination was Luo Xuan, the ace of the logistics department. He was the top machinery studies student of his year at the Western Capital University and had been recruited directly into Division 13. "Can you crack it?" asked the intelligence director. "No problem," replied the confident Luo Xuan. He didn't think that it was possible for an unknown mechanic to make a lock that he, a genius, couldn't crack. 20 minutes later, however, he had not made any progress and was sweating profusely. 4-layered encryption. Is the bastard who made this machine crazy or something? A 4-layered encryption was extremely complex to crack, as the slightest error would cause the machine's internals to disintegrate, rendering it useless. Luo Xuan was at a loss of how to proceed. The intelligence director's face had long since darkened. "Can you crack it or not? Don't waste my time." Luo Xuan suppressed his irritation and, through gritted teeth, replied, "This encryption is too complex. I need more time." "Enough. I don't have the time to wait for you. Just tell me your thoughts on the arm." Luo Xuan's face darkened in displeasure and he replied, frustrated, "The craftsmanship itself is nothing special. Only the encryption was well made. Feels like the creator is some bumpkin who treats garbage like treasure." The intelligence director's eyes twitched, but he left without saying anything else. Meanwhile, the director was making a phone call to the tall old man. "I have ensured that Han Zhao will join the covert ops team." "Good work. Thank you, old man. Is he really worth doing all this for?" asked the director curiously. "Heh. Intel is not all he has to offer. I have a feeling that he will play a crucial role in the battle against the Germinal Organization." Elsewhere, ruined skyscrapers crawled with vines. Below, the streets were cold and empty, and fragments of broken glass littered the line of stores. The stores were in an utter mess. Clearly, they had been plundered. A piece of yellowed newspaper from who knows what year danced about on the streets, carried by the faint wind. Moonlight filtered through the thick cloud of dust to lend the city some of its luster, the city's only source of light. This was an abandoned city. It had once belonged to a great nation, but even this great nation no longer existed, and its people had moved to other places. The living conditions here were so poor that even wanderers avoided this place. Countless other cities had been similarly abandoned over the last few decades of change. As soon as the people left, though, these forsaken jungles of concrete and steel became flourishing grounds for vegetation. The nation's top brass had been both shocked and angered to learn of the presence of Germinal bases in the country. Within 24 hours, troops had been dispatched from the nearest military bases to attack. Currently, the city was being bombarded. Over a dozen armored military vehicles had entered the city, and the sound of gunfire and cannon fire was incessant. Screams filled the night. However, the surface battle was just a diversion. 3 covert ops agents had been tasked to infiltrate the base. They'd just arrived at a side entrance. Lai Yilin was an agent with level 4 clearance. A beautiful, young woman with extremely fair skin. She wore a yellow hoodie on top of black compression tights that accentuated her sexy, nosebleed-inducing body. She had an athletic build. Lai Yilin held her hands up in the air as she stretched her back, demonstrating impressive flexibility in the beautifully arched, well-proportioned body of hers. She was clearly the most carefree and energetic of the trio. She stopped chewing on her bubblegum to complain. "I was finally able to take a break because of my leader's injury, but they called me back so suddenly for an emergency mission. Are agents not humans?" Lambert was the ace of a top-secret, unofficial squad during his time in the military, and he had been secretly transferred to the covert ops department after his discharge. He wore a military-style uniform, and on top of the dozen or so daggers strapped across his waist, there was a black sniper rifle across his back. This mission seems to be very important," stammered Lai Yao, a 1.7 meters tall man who looked extremely young. He was the hacker of this 3-man cell, and carried a bag filled with the team's tools. He was in the midst of hacking the door. It didn't take him too long. The trio exchanged glances before entering. Lai Yilin led the front while Lambert took the rear. They hacked through numerous high-tech gates effortlessly as they made their way to the server room. Suddenly, Lin Yao, who was monitoring the hacked feed, began to exclaim, "There are guards approaching from behind the..." Lai Yilin was the quickest to react. She burst forward so quickly that the guards weren't even able to draw their guns in time. Leaping gracefully into the air, Lin Yilin performed a mid-air split to kick the front 2 guards in their heads, snapping their necks instantly. Her power was just as impressive as her flexibility. She landed on her hands and used them as a pivot to spin her entire body. Her legs began to glow yellow as she extended them while spinning, easily sweeping through the crowd of guards. Digital lockdown was 57% complete. If he were fast enough, he would not only be able to make a backup of the base's data, but also use its access to hack directly into Germinal Organization's vaults. With the room acting as a fort, Lin Yulin and Lambert were able to put their fearsome combat abilities to full use. Wei Yanlin glowed with a yellow aura as she swiftly and gracefully dispatched of the invading guards with a metal baton on top of the lightweight mechanical arm. Her blows were so powerful that they shattered the guards' bones through their bulletproof armor. The pair was causing a massive number of casualties. Although the guards numbered over 100, they were unable to do anything. Screams filled the base. When they finally escaped, Lin Yao collapsed feebly to the ground, still shaking in fear. Wei Yulin and Lambert seemed accustomed to the sight. Wei Yulin fiddled around with the lightweight mechanic arm. She had grown fond of it. I wonder who invented this mechanical arm. Could it be that Luo Xuan? She wondered aloud. Who knows, but I did hear that he is slated to join covert ops. It's possible, conjectured Lin Yao as Lai Yanlin gazed lovingly upon it. The battle lasted for 2 hours, and it was Stardragon's most successful operation to date. Not only did they destroy an entire Germinal base, they also managed to collect large amounts of data. The top brass in Division 13 were pleased, and it wouldn't have been possible without Han Zio's intel. However, Han Zio's past and the Black Star issue remained a mystery as the information that Lin Yao had collected naturally had no mention of them. The Black Star message log was fabricated, while the Valkyrie experiments were top secret. Back at headquarters, Lai Yulin reluctantly returned the lightweight mechanical arm. Was the mechanical arm useful? Her superior asked. Wei Yulin nodded. It's all thanks to it that our mission was a success. Who created it? That, I can't tell you. Yulin's eyes sparkled. That will depend on the higher-ups. Wei Yulin gave up with harassing her tight-lipped superior and headed to the logistics department to look for Luo Xuan. The covert ops insignia on her chest ensured her smooth passage, ignoring the ongoing commotion caused by her very presence. Although all the departments in Division 13 were equal in status, the covert ops department was full of beautiful elite agents, so they were looked up to by all the other departments. Wei Yulin suddenly turned around to the crowd following her and loudly declared, I'm looking for Luo Xuan. Everyone looked towards Luo Xuan enviously, singling him out. Is Secret Ops here to recruit me? He wondered. Suppressing his excitement, he answered, I am Luo Xuan. How should I address you? Wei Yulin. What can I help you with? Asked Luo Xuan. Are you the one who invented that mechanical arm? Mechanical arm. Luo Xuan immediately thought of the lightweight mechanical arm that had caused him to lose face. Could it have malfunctioned? Luo Xuan celebrated inwardly. Was there some kind of problem? He asked with a straight face. Nothing like that. I just found it very useful. I want to make a personal order. Luo Xuan froze in embarrassment as snickers broke out in the crowd. He had been ranting loudly about how worthless he thought the mechanical arm was to the whole department. I didn't invent it, he replied with a forced smile. Then say so earlier. What a waste of my time. Luo Xuan's face darkened. Suddenly, Feng Jun, who had been passing by, came over and said, the inventor's identity is top secret. Please refrain from guessing or discussing it. Lai Yanlin was startled. Top secret. As the crowd dispersed, all Luo Xuan could think about was the threat that this mysterious mechanic posed to him. I will not let him have a good time if he joins the logistics department. Elsewhere in a secret facility. Boss, Base 45 has been destroyed. By whom? Stardragon. How did they learn of our base? Not sure. The Germinal Organization's bases were scattered all across the globe. However, only a few of them were situated within the territory of the 6 nations, and those key bases virtually hibernated all year round to prevent detection. How could they have discovered our base? Is there a spy amongst us? Only a handful of higher-ups in the organization knew the locations of their secret bases. It would be devastating if any of them turned traitor. The boss decided that he would have to conduct a purge. Of course, Han Zio did come to his mind. However, he ruled him out as it didn't seem possible for Han Zio to have access top-secret information as a lowly test subject. Still, the thought of Han Zio caused his blood to boil. It had been a while since the bounty was issued, yet there was still no news of him. You sure can run fast, but I'll squash you sooner or later. Enjoy your remaining days while you can. Han Zio has been missing for 3 days now. Where did he go? Liu Kaiyan was anxiously pacing up and down. Did he lose his way? It's all my fault. I should have gotten him a mobile phone. You said he's a foreigner, right? He doesn't even know this place well. What should I do? The optimistic. Maybe he just died, consoled old man Liu. Grandpa, why are you so biased against him? Old man Lu continued picking his nose leisurely. An idea crossed Lu Kaiyan's mind. Grandpa, help me ask someone to look for him, she pleaded. You wish, snorted her grandpa. When you stole my books, did you remember that I am your grandpa? Suddenly, Lu Kaiyan smiled shrewdly. Then I'll help you sell all the fine wine that you've been hiding underneath the floor in your bedroom. What are you talking about? Is your grandpa such a petty person? You just want to find him, right? I'll do it. Old man Lu instantly changed his tune. Thank you, grandpa, replied Lu Kaiyan with the widest smile. Old man Lu sighed. He proceeded to make a phone call to the tall, old man. Oi, old man, was Han Zio taken away by you guys? You guessed. What did he do? He didn't do anything. We just want to work with him. If he didn't do anything, then let him go right now, or else my granddaughter is going to ruin my wine collection. I can't. It's against the rules. Cut the bullshit. You are the one who sets the rules. You still owe me one for the last time, remember. I don't care. Just release Han Zio now. The tall, old man rolled his eyes in exasperation. All right, I got it. Old man Lu unhappily put the phone down. Why do I have to help that bugger? He sighed, reminded of his own past. Han Zio had been living in a luxurious one-man cell for the past 3 days. He didn't seem the least bit worried about his situation. Instead, he was more concerned with getting stronger. He was currently consulting the interface. Suddenly, the interface lit up. Class emission. Progress rate 1.6%. Looks like Division 13 has made their move. Han Zio was surprised by the number. Logically speaking, with how massive and powerful the Germinal Organization was, even destroying one of their bases shouldn't have that much of an impact on them as a whole. In the game, the war between the Germinal Organization and the Six Nations had mostly been a back and forth, with neither side being able to hold a clear advantage. The car stopped, and Han Zio was pushed out with the black bag still over his head. When the car began to speed off, Han Zio removed the black bag to find himself a few streets away from the workshop. When he looked up, he could see several glistening moons in the night sky. Tusk, why all the secrecy? He muttered to himself. Nevertheless, Han Zio was feeling quite pleased for having accomplished his goal. Han Zio stepped inside the workshop to see an anxious Lu Kaiyan pacing back and forth. For some reason, she became enraged at the sight of him. Why did you only come back now? Do you know how worried I've been? You're a foreigner. I thought something might have happened to you. Han Zio put on his did something happen expression and stared at her blankly. What exactly were you doing? Taking a stroll. Can you at least try to come up with a better excuse? I thought. It's quite a good excuse. A gunfight at the junkyard was reported on the news yesterday. I thought you got caught in it or something and Lu Kaiyan began nagging. Being nagged at did not irritate Han Zio at all. On the contrary, it gave him a warm and fuzzy feeling. However, old man Lu appeared to ruin the moment. You came back alive. How disappointing. I'll get you a mobile phone over the next few days. The cost will be deducted from your salary, said Lu Kaiyan. There's no need. I already have one, replied Han Zio as he whipped the black mobile phone out. Although they had told him not to share the number with anyone else. Screw Division 13. When he saw the black phone, old man Lu gave a start. He pulled Han Zio away to a corner. This is a Division 13 phone. You joined Division 13, so you know what this is. Since you've joined Division 13, get the hell out of my workshop. You can leave if you want to, I'm not leaving. How dare you talk to me like that? Why would you even want to? Old man Lu suddenly paused. Are you trying to woo my granddaughter? He glowered. No, Han Zio hastily answered. Suddenly, however, old man Lu's expression grew strange. Hey little Han, now that I think about it, my granddaughter is not that young anymore. What do you think about her? Han Zio immediately stiffened up. Old Lu, as the saying goes, a stolen melon is not sweet. But at least you would have a melon. Besides, we need a boy to carry on the family name. Old people who want descendants are scary. Han Zio turned around, and to his horror, Lu Kaiyan had been standing behind him the entire time. She stared at Han Zio with big, bright eyes that seemed to be on the verge of tears. This is a misunderstanding. Jerk. Lu Kaiyan covered her blushing face and ran upstairs. It's not like that. Han Zio's life in the workshop returned to normal. After a few days, he asked for an advance of his first month's pay to order some materials from Division 13. At present, he was examining a dark red bullet lying on his palm. It was carved with flame patterns. Causes an explosion in a 3-meter radius upon hitting the target. He also used some good quality metal to craft a 2.5 kilograms, 0.65 meters foldable knife with 13-19 damage. It was an entirely black knife with a triangular tipped edge, and while it was not really ideal for combat, it did have some practical uses. Ever since the night that Han Zio returned to the workshop, Liu Kaiyan had not once looked at him directly in the eye, and would blush and run away from him after just a few sentences, making Han Zio feel extremely irked. It did not help that old man Liu would pop up from time to give him knowing looks. As for Liu Kaiyan herself, she actually had mixed feelings about Han Zio. Of course, she did not hate Han Zio. However, it was not like she liked him either. Instead, she was more worried that Han Zio would pack up and leave if she rejected him. After all, where else would she be able to find such a good employee? Suddenly, Han Zio's mobile phone lit up. The message read, "The paperwork has been completed. Report today. Feng Jun." Finally, the covert ops department had a single floor all to themselves. It was noticeably less crowded than the other departments. Feng Jun brought Han Zio to a meeting room before leaving. Han Zio stepped through the door to see that there were already 3 people seated inside. They were none other than Lai Yulin, Lambert, and Lai Yao. "You're the logistics guy that the director gave special permission to join our team." Lai Yulin rose up to circle around Han Zio as she examined him. Han Zio raised an eyebrow. "Special permission, logistics guy." Suddenly, he noticed that the woman who had spoken to him was not only slender and perky, but extremely pretty. In Han Zio's books, she was easily up there with Hila. She was wearing a yellow sports-style jacket on top of black tights. "I am Han Zio, a mechanic." Lai Yao abruptly stood up, knocking his chair down in the process. Nice to meet you. I am Lai Yao, the team's hacker," he introduced, stretching out a hand. "I am the sniper, Lambert," introduced Lambert plainly without getting up. Han Zio shook Lai Yao's hand and casually acknowledged Lambert with a nod. He was obviously the silent type. "Hey, why are you wearing a mask?" asked Lai Yulin with big, bright, curious eyes as she reached out to pull Han Zio's mask off. Han Zio dodged. "Why are you hiding your face? Don't you trust us?" Lai Yulin questioned unhappily. "My identity is top secret," Han Zio replied. "Hold on." Lai Yulin seemed to recall something, and she jumped in front of Han Zio, asking, "Were you the one who made the lightweight mechanical arm?" Han Zio gave a start. "How do you know?" "Haha, so it's you." Lai Yulin jumped about excitedly before slinging an arm over Han Zio's shoulder. "Make another one for me." Han Zio's mouth twitched. "It won't be free." Lai Yulin laughed loudly before asking softly, "Can I have a discount?" "No, you miser. I still don't know your name." This overly friendly pretty lady was giving him quite a headache. Lai Yulin, in charge of close combat, she reluctantly answered. "So the 4 of us are a team." "No, there's still our leader." "Where is he?" "He's not here. He's recovering from an injury." Even the leader gets injured. "Covert ops must be some dangerous work," remarked Han Zio. The trio exchanged awkward glances. "The leader is sick from food poisoning," explained Lai Yao. "We were just issued a mission to take in Black Spider. Apparently, he's still hiding here in the western capital." Han Zio raised an eyebrow. The timing of the mission was too sudden. It was probably deliberately assigned by the higher-ups. Black Spider, Lai Yulin wondered aloud. "I know him. He's infamous for being a solo bounty hunter. The last time those field agents tried to bring him in, he blew up 2 whole streets. Why would he still hide here in the capital?" "When will we depart?" Lambert asked. "There's no rush, since they've already confirmed his location. Let's just act at night. Since this is your first mission, just familiarize yourself with the logistics preparation." Although it was their first meeting, the trio did not inquire too much about Han Zio's identity. To be assigned to covert ops already meant that the higher-ups trusted him, and that was enough. "You have triggered the Class E mission. Accept, decline." "Accept." Mission hint. Black Spider is a notorious murderer and bounty hunter. This is your first mission with the covert ops department. Your responsibility is to help the team succeed. Mission requirement: defeat Black Spider. Reward: 5,000 experience. Bonus reward: 40,000 experience or mind stabilizer. Black Spider, isn't that a mini-boss? Thought Han Zio to himself. Black Spider was an Esper who was regarded as one of the hardest bosses to kill in version 1.0. Normally, a mini-boss quest at Han Zio's current level would be at least Class D and reward way more experience. However, in Galaxy, quests rewards were automatically adjusted according to character level and roles. Generally, in a party quest, players who contributed the most damage or healing would earn the most experience. It was a system that prevented experience leeching. "I guess it's still better than nothing," Han Zio consoled himself. From what Han Zio knew about Black Spider, this mission would be a piece of cake for his team. However, the bonus reward was a different question. Han Zhao knew for sure that the condition for the bonus reward would be to take Black Spider in alive, but it could prove difficult to accomplish as Black Spider was in fact a superhuman, and his abilities made him much harder to catch than to defeat. The apartment building ahead is Black Spider's hiding spot. He should be on the 3rd floor. We need to approach silently, said Lai Yulin to Lambert and Lai Yan. There's no point in acting stealthy, interrupted Han Zhao through the intercom. Black Spider has already discovered you all. How do you know? Lai Yulin frowned. Suddenly, gunfire pierced the silence of the night as a storm of bullets rained upon the trio. They immediately jumped into the nearest alley to seek cover. The trio exchanged serious looks as they leaned against the wall. Since when did he notice us? While a simple ambush like that would never have been enough to do them in, they would not have been able to react so fast without Han Zhao's warning. Lai Yulin put her game face on and clamped her earpiece tighter. There was a man standing on top of the tall building from where the shots had come from, smiling frenziedly upon the trio's location with an assault rifle in his hands. On the left side of his face was a tattoo of a black spider. With a wave of his hand, 10 masked men armed with guns suddenly jumped out of their hiding spots in the nearby streets and alleys to converge on the alley that the trio was in. Our intel was wrong. Wasn't he alone? Lin Yao's eyes were wide with disbelief. Lai Yulin's heart sunk. Black Spider began to laugh coldly. Just as he was about to give the order to fire, Lai Yulin jumped onto the wall, and, as her legs began to glow yellow, she sprung forward, soaring in the air like a graceful swallow to close in on Black Spider and his men. Kill her, Black Spider frantically ordered. His men began to fire at Lai Yulin, and while a few bullets managed to find their mark despite her being fast to the point of becoming a blur, they simply flattened into metal pancakes upon hitting her clothes. Not only was the fabric of Lai Yulin's bodysuit weaved with bulletproof ceramic fiber, her own body itself was tough enough to deflect bullets. From the start, the trio had only been fleeing to bait in Black Spider and all of his men. 30 seconds later, there was blood splattered everywhere, and only Black Spider, with both hands chopped off, remained. Lai Yulin exhaled as she sheathed the retractable knife. She clearly looked pleased with it. Well done, praised Han Zhao. He had chosen to remain silent during the fight so as not to bother them. The heavily wounded Black Spider began to laugh hoarsely as he glared at Lai Yulin without a single trace of fear in his eyes. Little brat, you guys can't kill me, he taunted. Suddenly, Lambert whipped out his gun to shoot Black Spider in the head. Blood splattered across the floor as Black Spider's body collapsed to the ground. Lai Yulin and Lai Yao turned to look at him speechlessly. Can't know until you try, he stated plainly. Suddenly, however, Han Zhao spoke. Don't let your guard down. He's not dead yet. Lai Yulin almost stumbled backwards in her stretch. How can he be alive? She fumed as she pointed at what remained of Black Spider's head. He is a superhuman with some tricky abilities. Unmask the corpse next to him. You will understand, replied Han Zhao calmly. But there isn't any piece of news on the dark web that says Black Spider is a superhuman. Hesitated Lai Yao. You might be mistaken. Not might, he is definitely mistaken, added a disgruntled Lai Yulin. Hey, newbie, I know you want to earn some credit, but don't make these kind of things up. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.